And hello, everyone, and welcome to Real Review number 4 with the fantastic John Kelliher and Presley Hynes today. Super excited to have you two on this today. We've got some super amazing rule submissions as well, so it'll be a fun one. And quick intro as always. I'm Greg. You know me from here and Twitter and game audio learning and other stuff. John.
I'm John Kelliher. I am an audio designer at No Breaks Games. And yeah, happy to be here.
And Presley.
Hello, I am a sound designer at Brass Lion Entertainment, and super stoked to be here today.
Awesome. So, in that case, let's jump into our first reel by Nuno Bento. Oh, I think we lost Presley. Let me just check. Oh, no, Presley is still... let's see. Can you... Video hidden. Let's see. So, is it all good? Are you here? Can you hear
Yeah,
the stream?
I think I just lost the video for a second there.
Okay. Can you hear the stream still? Sorry, the video.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. No worries, all good. So, yeah, I think the end is just some fun little sounds. Cool, so first impressions. I'll start. Super cool reel, really, really good stuff in there, but it is incredibly long. So one of the big things in this industry is that there's a lot of applicants to jobs, and so you have a pretty short time span to kind of impress. And I think one of the big things is that you want to, in about a minute to maybe 150-ish, 2 minutes max, kind of really make a huge impact and show why they should hire you. So I think one of the big things here is to cut down on the actual content and to highlight some of the best clips and make it a lot shorter, because you've got some really, really cool stuff in there to showcase, and even actually a shipped game. So yeah, that would be my first impression. I also really enjoy this is a little personal thing, but I think this is really cool. You've like matched the text with the actual what's it called, with like the color palette of the video, and you have some cool little text here. I think that's cool. Other than that, there's some really long transitions, so those transition times, just like squeeze them down as well. And I think for the captions, some of them can disappear after a while. When we see them initially, that's good, and then they don't need to, I guess, be there for the whole time and distract from the visual. But yeah, overall, really, really awesome content. What do you think, John?
Yeah, pretty much everything the same as you said. I think probably just select the like best parts of all of these and make something that's, as like between a minute and 2 minutes, maybe 2.5 minutes. But yeah, I think most people would probably want it under 2 minutes. There's some really cool stuff, ambient stuff going on, and a big focus on kind of like horror, and I think that's really cool. If that's the kind of line that Nuno wants to go down, then this is a great reel for applying for a horror thing.
Definitely, yeah. It's definitely horror focused for sure. Presley, what do you think?
Yeah, same comments. I think all of it's really good sound design wise. It's exceptionally long, and certainly if this was coming through, I'd probably watch maybe half. So I'd definitely consider trying to pare that down quite a lot. I love the detail in the beginning, in the first clip where you were describing the process. That was really, really cool. But I wasn't sure what it was. Was it a redesign? Is it something that you created? I kind of got lost because there's nothing. Yeah, the reveal trailer is there, but I think that goes away. And I don't know if I'd recommend taking it off the screen. I'd maybe just put it in the corner, so I'm going to say that yes, this is a redesign, and leave that title up. Just because of that. I love how it's all horror themed. The ambient stuff is great. The good thing about it is that even though it's really long and we're suggesting that you pare it down, you have so much content that feels very similar in style that it should be a relatively streamlined process of paring it down to the best parts of each clip to make it like under a minute and a half.
Yeah, definitely. The direction is there. I think horror is the theme, of course. And yeah, if you're trying to get into that kind of area, then I think you've got a really well placed reel if you edit this together a bit more. Yeah, I think for this, definitely like keep it down in the corner and make sure that it is, or even just have it like a lot bigger initially so that it's clear, because the text you've made so nicely with the whole design, it kind of looks like it's part of the trailer. And I think initially that can get lost easily, so it's, yeah, that's definitely something to note. Let's break down maybe a couple of the clips, not to go too much into it. I think the sound design is very high quality, but we can maybe look at like the first and the second one a little bit closer, so let's listen to it again. Yeah, so I think really the strengths in here are for sure all of those mechanical sounds and the really interesting kind of different tonal glitch elements. Those are super cool. I think they are pristine and amazing. I think the main area of improvement for me personally would be the ambience, and I think it's mainly what we don't see as well. So kind of in some of these shots where you can see in the beginning the hallways, and it goes from kind of spooky to, oh god, something's happened. And it will be interesting to hear a little bit of those remnants. You have the light flickering, but what is happening off screen? And I think that for me will be a kind of a focus area. What do you think, Presley?
I've actually commented on this room before, so you know most of my comments about it anyway. However, something that you could think about if you wanted to kind of try some more abstract sound design kind of stuff is, along with what Greg is saying, and doing what's off screen, you know, we switch from this kind of like really nice looking hallway to this situation. It might lead to a nice opportunity to like have some verbed out screams or voices or something. Like, what happened here in the past to make it the way it is now? You might have some little kind of moments in there, you know, you hear like a scream off to the right or something, and you hear some smashes over the other side or whatever, and just kind of, you know, hint at what happened. Might be a cool way of sort of building up the ambience a little bit more.
Yeah, I love that. Anything to add, John?
Yeah, I think I've either seen this reel or this clip before, and I
Yeah.
think it's probably something that I've mentioned before as well, is that like I think the original clip is so, or the original trailer is so iconic in my mind that I think it's really cool to be able to replicate it in a lot of ways, because it is so like design heavy, especially like all of the little bits of foley and like the very tight kind of reverbs, was definitely something that stood out to me in the original that I think is done really, really well in this. But I think the part, especially since it's like the first clip in the reel, I think for the trailer it worked really well that there was some weird distorted like quite silent bits at the start where there's the view of the moon and going into this corridor and that. But I think if I want to be wowed as an employer, I would probably want to see something quite like drastic as the first thing that I see, and something that's quite a little bit more show offy. So it's just a suggestion, but I think that it's certainly something that you know, you could experiment with a little bit, and you know, maybe try just a bunch of different things and see what works. And the only other comment that I have is that I think the impacts, I just would want like a little bit more of a like some punch to it, especially when the robots like grabbed you by the throat and impales you, as gruesome as it is. I think I'd just like to hear a little bit more like transient kind of kick in it, just to make it feel even more visceral. But beyond that, I think everything's like really fantastic.
Awesome. Then let's do a tiny bit of the second clip, and then we can move on. Nice. Yeah, that's a cool one. There we go. Yeah, great transition into the thing. Again here, it's a bit long into the next one, so if you just like shorten it up. But yeah, this one. Any thoughts on this? Who wants to start? John, maybe?
Sorry, did you say me?
Yeah, if that's
yeah, sure. Just a quick one. It's really cool. If this was like in game, I would be really impressed. I'd be terrified, and you know, especially all the screams and or like wailing and that off in the distance. There's loads of really good attention to detail as well. The like glass on the floor in the footsteps is really cool. I'd probably amp it up a tiny bit more, just like, you know, hyper realism is just make it bigger than life. And you could probably start the glass shard sounds from probably as soon as you enter the room. And the only other thing I'd say is that there sound like there are a couple of like Foley bits missing, and I would probably just add a bit like more blood sounds to when the hand smears against the wall and when the character like falls onto the ground. You actually see blood stains sort of appearing on the ground, same as like the blood stain appearing on the wall. And again, hyperrealism just like add more to make it feel like, oh, actually this character is like really injured, and you really want to sort of like feel that through the audio. And there's not really a better way of doing that than through like gory, bloody kind of textures. But yeah, that's great. How about you, Presley?
Yeah, totally agree. What my comment was actually going to be the blood on the floor. It was something that I noticed right away and kind of missed in the sound. And same with like the rattling around in the drawers and stuff like that. Like almost make it a jump scare in a way of its own, right? Like really kind of like, he slams that door open and a bunch of things rattle around. Like hyperrealism for stuff like this is really what makes you feel uncomfortable in horror scenes and stuff like that. When something's just a little bit overdone, that's when it gets freaky, especially when it's so quiet. So definitely kind of ramp up the hyperrealism on some of this stuff and you'll be sailing.
Yeah, similar comment from me, the blood on the floor. The other thing, I think, I love what you said with the drawer, make it a jump scare. I think one of the things as well is like when you're in a horror game, you don't want to make a lot of noises and stuff. So if that opens and it's really loud and squeaky and rattly and everything, then it's like, oh shit, we're making lots of noise, oh god. And it creates lots of tension. So I think that is just a really great element to build even more tension before the thing happens. And the creature obviously yeah.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, that was it. The creature's coming in. Yeah, you don't want it to come basically to hear you.
I was gonna say, we just this weekend we did a watch of A Quiet Place and A Quiet Place Part 2, and just really good reference for the smallest of sounds being absolutely horrifying. There's a scene in the first one where they knock over a kerosene lamp, and like I jumped. All they did was knock over a lamp, but because of the scene being so quiet as it is, that one sound was so loud that I absolutely jumped out of my seat. And I think you have a lot of opportunity to do that here, and I think you should do more of it.
Yeah. I need to still watch that film. The A Quiet Place too. I've watched the first one, but yeah, the second one. So yeah, overall, I think what you've got in there is great. Just chop it down to the best parts, and like John said in the beginning, wow the person that's watching, and yeah, really try and squeeze that time down. Cool. So next we have Jake Paxton. Nice. Excellent job. This is a cool reel for sure. First impressions, I think for me, one of the biggest things is that, especially in the last clip, there's like a lot of things that are in stereo and have a super wide stereo image, and it's like 2D and in front of you, and it just doesn't sound like it's coming from the world, like it's not placed in the world. And I think in game audio especially, just tons of the sounds are mono, and I talked about this with Tyler loads in last real review where it was one of our big focus points, and I think in this one as well, it will be great to have a play experiment with putting sounds in mono, and especially when it's something that's like a character who's walking from A to B and it's very kind of directional on screen. That will be one of my biggest kind of points here. Yeah. What do you think, Presley?
Yeah, I liked the clips that you chose. There was a lot of really cool stuff happening in all of them. Along with what Greg was saying, I do agree with the stereo imaging situation. My comment would be, I like what you have, but I'm missing a lot of what you don't. There are a lot of opportunities, especially in things like the Horizon Zero Dawn clip, or Horizon Forbidden West, whichever one it is, where like you can see the other creatures just off in the distance, and I want to hear more of them. I'm hearing what she's doing, what Aloy is doing, but I'm not hearing what's happening in the world. And I think you have a lot of room in all of the clips for a little bit more like world building and storytelling, apart from what is the focus of the screen.
Yeah, definitely. John?
Yeah, agree with everything you guys have said. I think the stereo imaging is probably the thing that stood out to me most. Think as an extension of what Presley just said, I think that it's really cool that there's a lot of stuff that's like really in your face. And I've seen a lot of people come out with like, reels and sound design that's like very just excessive and in a good way, like just very much. And very loud and very like full of action and stuff. But I think something that's like impressing me more a lot recently is just like breathing room, like just having space for everything that Presley was talking about, like having space for the character or the robot that's over in the distance that's like searching for Aloy, and when the UI comes up, being able to actually just have like a little bit of breath in that by having like a low pass filter come over all of the in-world sounds and have them sort of like slowed down. I think it's for me, it's a little bit like heavy for a moment that should probably be more like kind of like a rest between all of that action. So I think maybe just experiment a little bit more with pulling back a little bit on how much noise is happening at any moment, so that the moments that are big can actually sort of like shine through, like the explosions and the big like monster roars or the giant crocodile thing that's sort of like stomping towards you in that.
Yeah, definitely. Good stuff there. So let's look at some of the details. Let's start with the first clip. Cool. So one of the big things is here there's like a weird stereo transition, which is one of those things where it's a small detail, but it's like it just throws you off while listening. So just make sure to beware of stuff like that, where it just feels like it's immediately switching like from left to right or something. I can't quite tell what's going on. And then I just think like the impact sounds are cool, but they're all quite light. It doesn't sound super heavy to me. And I think that would be one of my biggest things. There's also a little bit of a lack of ambience. Of course, the focus is on the kind of the fight, but it will maybe be interesting to sometimes when there's like a successful takedown or something to have like a little bit of a swell up in the crowd or something like that. What do you think, John?
Actually, Presley, if you have anything now, that'd be good. I'm still collecting my thoughts.
Sure, yeah, I can go. Yeah, I agree with there. Some of the things are a little bit light. Like I think you have room to play with dynamics in the weight of all the different weapons that we're seeing, because there's a lot of different things happening here. With my comment earlier about storytelling within the space, I think you also have room for following the camera movement with your audio a little bit. Like the camera really whips around with some of these scenes and gives you a wicked opportunity for some like crazy whooshes or like some like, verbed out crowd things or something while the camera is moving. You see in like action movies and especially like in the realm of like fighting and kung fu and stuff like that, where the camera will really whip around with all the punches and stuff that's happening, and it adds to the dynamics of the moment. And I think you could do the same with your audio by following the movement of the camera a little bit more with just emojis or like crowd sounds or whatever you want to do there. And I think it'll just hype up some of those impacts even more and help add to the weight of some of those weapon moments.
Nice.
Yeah, cool. I couldn't agree more. I think there are some like low end impact that don't really cut through as much as I would expect them to. And I think I'm just guessing here, but I think that you could probably do with potentially like curving out some space in the rest of the sounds that are going on at the moment, or like at that moment, to really let that boom kind of hit, to just sort of just make it feel a little bit more impactful. I think there's probably a couple of like other frequencies that are going on, particularly in the low end, that seem to be clashing, at least as far as I can hear. So it makes it feel a little bit noisy and drowns out like some of the sounds that are going on that should potentially feel a little bit heavier. And then going off on the feedback that Greg and Presley have both said, potentially making things sound a little bit heavier, you'll have a little bit more like headroom in the low end to actually be able to get those sounds to sound a little bit more weighty.
Nice. Cool. Then let's go to the next clip. And let's see, what clip would we like to do? Because we'll do one more of this. Do we want to do the last one or the one in the middle? What are we voting on? Horizon or what is this game even? The other one, Replaced.
Replaced,
That's cool.
yeah.
Let's
do Replaced.
Yeah, I was gonna say we've seen a lot of Horizon stuff. Horizon is cool, by the way. It's a great one to do. It's a hard one to do as well. Those creature sounds amazing. So.
Also, I'm seeing that your titles disappear. Just gonna point that out. I'm becoming Kevin Ruggedy with this, but either way, I think it's just a really good point. It's just keeping the titles up for all three. Like Horizon, I'm seeing that there's a bit that doesn't have Horizon redesign in your subtitle there. So something to think about.
Yeah.
Do you feel that like your preference would be to have it up just the whole time so that there's never a moment of like confusion?
Absolutely, yeah. Because like when I'm, thankfully Horizon Forbidden West is a game that most sound designers will have seen a lot anyway. But I kind of, if I'm so focused on listening to the sound design, I kind of forget what I'm looking at for a hot second. So sometimes when the title card goes away, I'm like, wait, did they work on this game, or is this like a redesign? Hold on, and then I have to like go back and see what it said to begin with, just because I'm so focused on listening critically to the audio that split second of like, wait, what did they do again? Right, yeah, okay, wait, click back. It's a little distracting if I have to do that. So I think my personal preference is just keep it up the whole time. Take the opacity down for sure, but I think keeping it up the whole time would be a benefit.
Yeah, for me it's always like title cards is in my personal preference. It's like game name, studio name, then what you did. If it's a redesign, make it very clear that it's a redesign, and then it's like I like it when it's clear in the beginning, but then either goes away or it hides itself. Like this is actually pretty decent. It could be put down even further, but I find them sometimes like people have like a quarter of the screen and it's like, oh, I can't see the visuals. So I think if it's like this, it's perfect. These are very nice, and just bring them down a little bit, and yeah, opacity can go. But let's get into Replace. Cool. Anyone want to start on this? Or shall I? I can start otherwise. So, as I said before, mono and stereo is one of those things. There's some hits here which are like more my left ear, right ear, and it just the style, this kind of 2D style, really lends itself to a great utilization of the stereo spectrum. So you can really bring those ambiences into the surrounding, because it's not just pure kind of like 2D straight, whatever it's called, flat, I guess is the word. But it really looks like 3D in a 2D style. But then make sure that those important kind of sounds that are player feedback and information are really spatialized, because it's of course this is a trailer, but when it comes to kind of gameplay and stuff, and a lot of this is gameplay, it's really important to give the player the information they need to be able to play the game and know where the enemies are and where your character is, especially if you have people that are struggling with their sight and need extra audio assistance. And so in those cases, it's really important. And I think even though this is a lot more of a stylized trailer, I guess, that can shine through a little bit. And then the other point, I think like your ambiences are super cool. It's very interesting how it kind of like washes across a little bit. But at the end, the kind of stylized, like, I'm not 100% sure about that. I think, especially because it repeats this here, I think, yeah, I'm not exactly sure. I think I would experiment with like slightly something else, maybe like a more singular cinematic rise or something into your end credit, and then some more ambiences or something to while it's going on or in the background. But yeah, I'm not a fan of that specific noise. Maybe that's more subjective. Yeah. What do you think, Presley?
I do actually agree. It was my main comment on this one is actually that ending bit. Especially going into your title card. I don't know what that sound is attached to anymore. It didn't really feel like there was a lot going on in the scene before that sort of matched that sound. And so I was like, oh, cool, glitchy tones to end the... Sure. You know, it's not that it's a bad sound necessarily. I just don't know if it fits this particular moment. And it left me a little bit confused as it trailed out over your title card at the end. Otherwise, yeah, I think I just agree with what Greg was saying for the most part. The spatialization is probably the biggest issue in this one. I like a lot of the ideas that you're going for in it. I think you could hype some of them up a little bit more, like player feedback and stuff like that. I think you could just beef it up. But overall, yeah, it's a neat idea to throw in your reel. Like, it's a very different clip, and I haven't seen it before, which is kind of really nice.
+1. John, any thoughts?
Yeah, the big one that stood out for me, I know we're just going to talk about the stereo imaging now, but when the train is passing by, it's just something to consider. It's a cool idea that there's some storytelling that, like, the train sound starts like it's coming from the left and then it sort of like pans to the right. But in terms of what's actually happening on screen, you got to think about like what are you saying? Like, the character is in the middle and the character is following the train. So from their perspective, even the train is still kind of just like in the center of the screen. So you'd probably want like quite a wide stereo image, but you wouldn't really expect it to like pan from left to right over the duration of the clip, because that's not really what's happening on screen. So I'd probably just remove that and just keep it as like a cool like big wide stereo like train sound. I think the big thing for me is this clip's quite interesting because it sort of borders the line between, is it gameplay sound design that you're going for, or is it like a trailer like sound design? Because if it's a trailer, I would say go nuts with the transitions between the clips, like risers, big hits, big reverb. It would probably be a way to end the title card as well. It's like a big riser into a like a big cinematic boom with a lot of reverb tail, and it would be a kick-ass way of like actually ending the reel and, you know, kind of like leave an impact. Alternatively, probably this is what I would do as a personal thing. I'm just a sucker for getting in the nitty-gritty of the like gameplay sound design, is just make it sound like it's like what it would sound like in the game, and then you don't necessarily need quite as much detail on the cuts, although I would still probably do a bit of processing or just like added layers to sort of make them quite smooth. Because I think the clip before the final clip, I think it's the one where the guy's jumping or something, there's just like a hard cut from like, oh my god, there's so much going on, to, oh, it's actually quite quiet now, and then there's a fight scene. Would you mind playing that again, Greg?
Sure.
Yeah, that.
Yeah.
So it's like there's so much noise going on, and then it just suddenly cuts and it goes quiet when it should probably be. You got to think about the storytelling of like you're building up to something big, which is the sort of like the tension, and then the release. But you wouldn't really want the release like at that moment. You would probably want the release at the when the title card comes in, when you'd come in with a boom. Um, so yeah, I would say probably just build it up. Think about how you'd make it more cinematic, or pick one or the other. Really, is it gameplay? Is it a trailer?
For sure. Great stuff here. So overall, wonderful reel, Jake. Yeah, points like we said, stereo image being a big one. And then next up we have Victor Sursa. I hope I'm saying that correctly. Oh, and we have a doggy. Hello. Yay. Very cool. What you've got in there is really good, I think. Everything has a lot of white, I would say. That's really nice. The big main things for me, one of them is the title cards are great, but I would make them just a lot smaller. They're really hiding a lot of the visual, in my opinion, personally. But the other thing is that the menu is cool, but it's really long. And there's just not that much going on. The sounds are great, but yeah, it's a little bit long for me, in my opinion. I would almost shorten that clip and then put in something else that has a little bit more going on, especially because like the first clip, there's not huge amounts going on as well, and kind of, yeah, it takes a while for that one to transition into the next one, so cut that down a little. And then for the last one, it's just like more details really, but we'll get to that afterwards. Yeah, and John, initial impressions.
Yeah, it's really cool. There's a lot that's good going on with this. I think one of the bits of feedback I've been given in the past on my reel was like put the heavy hitters first, and for me, I think that the cinematic like clip would probably be a stronger like intro to the reel, but I haven't fully made up my mind about that yet. So I'll think about it. And the other one is ambiences. I think that the ambiences are lacking in all of this, and I know that we keep on going on about this in every single reel review that we do, but they are really important. They ground the world that you're in. I could hear the ambiences in this first clip, but I think that they could be amped up and sort of like exaggerated a bit. There's a bit of dripping, but you probably want to hear a little bit more wind. You'd probably want to hear a little bit more kind of like storytelling. Like, would there be spots, like spot sounds in the world that you could hear? Probably not, because there isn't really anything there. But yeah, probably just want to hear a little bit more going on in the ambience.
Cool.
Over to you, Presley.
Yeah, totally agree with all that. Another thing about the title is it says redesign, not redesign.
Oh yeah, redesign.
Something to fix, and I think it's on all three. Looks like you might have copy pasted. So just be aware that it's that you have to change your spelling there on that one, but that's okay. Yeah, I agree with the UI stuff. Sounds good. It's clean. One thing about this reel that is, I don't think it's a bad thing, but is interesting, is that you're going for a lot of subtlety, which is nice to see, but it also gives you room to do more in the moments that you want to be highlighted. We can go into this once we kind of do the whole detail thing. But yeah, like there are moments where you can make them a little bit bigger than they are, or go a little bit more into detail because of how subtle all three of the clips are.
Nice. Cool. Let's jump into some of the details. I would say let's maybe take the first and the last clip for this one. So first one. Oops. There we go. Oh, God. Cool, so one of the big ones for me here is the sync is slightly off. It's tricky for you to probably see because of the stream lag, but it's just ever so slightly off where I can like tell that it's off. And as someone who's done a lot of syncing Foley to stuff, yeah, these things are especially important when there's not a lot going on. So just like the bow not being quite released on time. And yeah, that will be one of the big things for me. Another thing is that I like to hear more of the Foley, of like the armor and like the cape and clinking and stuff. He's got like gear on the back of his back and yeah, things like that. That'd be my main points. Presley, what do you think?
Yeah, I like the clip. It's a nice clip for showing off some really cool elemental details, and I think what I'm missing most is just some high-end crisp. That arrow shot into the dude's face with all the electricity coming off of it, I feel like I'm just missing a lot of high-end that could really kind of help sell the strength of the attack. And I think the same could go with the fire. I just think you have room to play with the high end a little bit more in this clip in general, along with kind of what we have already said about the ambiences and stuff like that. But I think that would be my main comment.
Cool.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think generally, on the second listen, like I listened to it and I could totally like hear it in the context of the game. I'm only noticing now that the sync is slightly off as well, but you know, it should be a relatively easy fix, I reckon. But yeah, I think as well as high end, you definitely want to just like hear a crunch. But also you could probably add, like I was talking about before, you could probably like dip the low end of everything else and just like really bring through like a proper thud and just exaggerate it a little bit more. Same as with the like the axe throw as well. Yeah, just a bit more high end, a bit more low end, and really just like exaggerate everything going on there. But yeah, that's about it. Apart from, like I said before, just maybe something a little bit more interesting with the ambiences. Just had a little bit more wind and a little bit more like cave vibes. Even if it's, I mean, there aren't really any bats or anything, but you might be able to sell it off screen because just allowing them to use their imagination.
Cool. Nice one. Then let's do a really quick one of this, and then we'll move on to Jack's reel. Oh, we've got the landing. Yeah, all the sounds in there sound fantastic and really detailed, and I really like the style. It's all incredibly clean, and I think subtle is the perfect word to describe it, as Presley said. Main thing for me is that there's like missing details. I would like to hear when they, you know, when these things come out, like a lot more maybe mechanics and interesting, I don't know, they're like these weird biomechanic creatures and stuff, so just having a little bit more detail in that. And I guess, was there ambience? No, not really. So yeah, that will be another big point, like what's surrounding, what's the ambience like. What do you think, Sean?
Yeah, same with the ambiences. There's also, yeah, as you said, there's mechanical things going on as well. Like there's this like fan thing at the top that sort of like twists, and I'd probably just want to hear like a little bit more exaggeration with all of those things, because it's the sounds that are there are really cool, but I think they just need to be amped up in like even more intricate details. Same with low end as well. I would imagine when they actually launch, I would probably put in like sort of more cinematic whoosh or something like that to really make them feel like they're launching off, because there are these big rockets that you show, and they do sound cool, but when they actually take off, it sounds like there's like a gap for something a little bit like meatier. And then the last part is this big sort of like when they're all like spreading out, and there's the view of all of those sulfur pools. I would want to hear, what do they sound like? Do they sound like they're like bubbling or something like that? Maybe you could hear it from there. I'm not entirely sure, but probably just fleshing out the ambience a little bit more to make it feel like an alien planet. But yeah, that's me, Presley.
Yeah, totally agree. I think you hit the nail on the head for a lot of this. I think to kind of just build on that, really, because pretty much all my comments have sort of been gone over already. That moment where the wings open on the one that's closest to the camera is like the biggest moment in this trailer, and I feel like you have the opportunity to make like two or three other moments that loud. Like it is very noticeably bigger than a lot of other things that are happening. You know, like pick say I don't know the first little jet fire thing that starts up. Like that could be as big as that, and then like that fan thing opening on the top of the ship. You know, those two moments being as big as that wing open might give you a nice cadence in the reel as well. But yeah, thinking about that kind of thing, just in terms of sort of building up some of the more detailed moments and the things that are closer to the camera, and then yeah, I really like what you have though. It's really cool.
Nice. Yeah, for sure. Awesome. In that case, let's get on to Jax. I think we've reviewed this a couple of times, and it's really, really cool to see the evolution. So we'll do a very quick one in this, and then just get to the last clip. Nice. So first, I just want to say also, I forgot, but yeah, Victor, fantastic reel for the one before. That was great. Really good job. Jack, yeah, I think this is so cool to see the evolution really from starting all the way to now. And I think like really the first clip is the best, and I think it's also one of the newest ones, and that really shows. Yeah, it's really solid. I think some of the biggest points for me are I'll cover a little bit of the details as well, since we'll just go to the next clip afterwards and skip the big details. But here I think everything is really good except for like the gun stuff and the gunshots and the hits. It sounds super duper compressed, and so I think for that it will be, they are really loud. Guns are crazy loud in real life, and those punches, you want to have them loud because it's hyper realism. So if you just duck down the rest of your mix and have those really loud and punchy with like heavy hitting transients, and you bring down the rest of the mix, especially like for example the ambiences and some of the other stuff and the Foley, then it will sound as if the guns are louder without you having to kind of make them really, really compressed and like kind of flat sounding. And then my other thing is just like a little bit more details in terms of what's the word? So for example, yeah, just filling out like those gaps with nice details. For example, on the reload sound here, it was a bit like, and it would be really cool. Like, what does this weapon sound like? It's a really weird held together by energy, so it could be a lot more like the energy sticks. So maybe it's like magnetic, and you've got like kind of a resistance, and then it goes back in like a magnet, and those type of things where it's like, what is it sound like in the context of the visual and all of that. But yeah, overall, like I think one of the huge things here is like you're continuing to evolve and get better, and it's really really impressive to watch, and you're doing a great job and on a really really good path. Yeah, John or Presley, who wants? I'll
Presley, you can go.
cool.
I'll go, sure. Yeah, like good stuff for sure. I can definitely see the improvement that you're making, which is really, really amazing to see. Totally agree with Greg. My biggest comment is just more. I just want more of everything. Right now it it all sounds the same level. We're all here, and I want moments that go up to here. It's just right here, right now, and I think some of it is the compression. A lot of this felt very compressed. I don't know, maybe part of it's also the stream. I'm not entirely sure, but it felt very compressed, and I feel like you have a lot of room to sort of work on that part of things and really just amp up the details and amp up the hyperrealism, especially in the Last of Us clip. You know, things like that, they have to be big. And I said this earlier, and I'll say it again: camera movements. When the camera moves in that Last of Us clip, go hard, hit the whooshes, hit everything. You know, you want to. Like they're putting those movements in for a reason. They want those moments to feel larger than life. This here, look at that. The whole camera moves with that swing. So really, like hitting that hard, I think will help sell just how big these moments are. Even the God of War one, time slows down when Baldur hits the shield. There is a moment where everything gets slowed, and you'll see it coming up here. And ready? Hey, see, it all gets slowed down for a second. So hit those moments harder. You have the room for it.
Awesome.
Yeah, cool. I couldn't agree more. I don't really have all that much. Do you mind just showing me the waveform? I think that
Yeah,
would
yeah,
probably,
I guess if we.
Oh, it's not as bad as I expected. Can you just like normalize it and just or well, just put it to like 0 dB. Yeah, it's not that bad. There's still plenty of headroom for stuff. So I think yeah, it's just a matter of not like whacking a limiter or like too much compression on a lot of sounds. It's definitely something that you have to think about a little bit later, especially like when you're in engine. It's like thinking about the dynamic mix of everything. You don't really think about it too much when you're doing like music or whatever, although you would use things like side chain compression. But like when you're working in a game context, basically everything, every mixer bus is like under sidechain compression or ducking or whatever. And then you're using snapshots to sort of like during a cutscene, you'd bring stuff down, or during the menu, you'd bring other stuff down. And you're sort of just like, you have this much headroom and this much sounds. So you kind of just like need to fit all of that like within each other. So think about that when you're arranging everything within the context of even linear media, because all you really care about is the information that's like most relevant, and everything else is sort of like flavor and world building and that. So yeah, but it is really cool. The progress that you've made is fantastic. It's certainly better than the like progress that I made, like 6 years ago. So yeah, I'd certainly say that you're doing great and taking on feedback really well, because that's the other thing as well, is that like, I want to work with people who I can say, this doesn't sound right, and they go, all right, cool, I'll change it, or be able to defend themselves in a way that's not, they don't get like pissy about stuff. So yeah, so not only good sound design, good improvement and everything, but like good spirit as well. I think that's really, really cool.
Yeah, I agree on all of that. Like being able to go and take on feedback and come away with that feedback being implemented, even if it's maybe not then perfect or whatever, but like just being able to take that, to work on it, and to go into a direction is really really important. So yeah, awesome job, Jack, and yeah, really great. So last one is Zarya. It's a redesign, so let's get into this. Nice. I mean, Oh, that is just super satisfying, I have to say. I think the biggest thing for me is the reload sound, I think, which feels pretty empty. And then I think the explosions could be a little bit bigger with like big, what is it called? Kind of like slapback delays, because there's a mountain behind and houses around. So this will create lots of delays and reverberations because it's all coming right back at you. So that would be a really, really good opportunity. But the sounds are incredibly satisfying. It's really, really cool stuff right there. And yeah, with the reload, it would just be nice to have a lot more just stuff going on. Like there's tons of mechanics here and energy stuff as well, and a lot of it is again really, really in the stereo, which is it's okay, but at the same time, like when you have a weapon, you'll want a lot of the sounds also to be kind of localized to that weapon, which is mono. So really be aware of what you put in stereo. Anything you put in stereo will sound bigger, but you just want to be aware of the balance between like making it sound huge versus like also not making it sound like it's around you rather than this is the weapon you're shooting. So yeah, those are my main comments. Yeah, John.
Actually, Presley, you go.
Presley, go
So
ahead.
collecting thoughts.
Can do. I really like it. I like it. It all sounds very round, and I think that's very good for the visuals. Like it looks the way it sounds, which is awesome. I kind of just want a little bit more danger out of the audio. It sounds great, but it's leaning towards cute. It's really heavy, like there's weight to it, but there's no danger to it. I think it's just because of those high end like pew pew, and I love it. Please keep it. But I almost need like a noise layer in the shots to just sell the fact that it is a gun firing. It's kind of my main comment on it. I love the sound of it, and I love the layers that you have. I just need a little bit more of the hazardous part of it to make it like absolutely perfect. I hope that makes sense.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's really cool. Actually, I was going to say the same thing. I'd probably like the high end layers really sell it, like sell the aesthetic of it. But as Greg and Presley were both saying, like the mechanics will probably add to that layer or help sell that layer of danger. So you see that there's the mechanism spinning while the laser is going off. So I'd probably want to hear something like some like mechanical clicky sounds, and also probably maybe a bit of like wubby low end to make it feel, you know, more like a laser beam than like a light show. So yeah, and then same with the explosion as well. I think definitely adding like a bunch of like really kind of mountainous reverb, big open space with big like long delay times, or sorry, like reflection times. Stuff like that will help sell that it's in a mountain, and the explosion you could make it sound like it's further away by, you know, wetter reverb and yeah, probably just like cutting it a little bit off the high end off as well. But yeah, you probably want to make them also sound as, you know, the same kind of like character as the gun, but yeah, maybe just a little bit more like oomph to really sell it.
Fantastic.
But yeah, otherwise, other than that, it's really, really cool.
Yeah. Also, just I mean, I know this isn't part of a reel, but it's great to add a little, what game it's from. I guess this is from Overwatch, Ash. But yeah, it would be cool to just have that to know. And if you need references for dangerous guns, Doom Eternal, and then get some of that inspiration, put it into this. You know. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much also for the donation, Steve and Alex. Much appreciated. Keeping game audio learning alive, because bills. Yeah, that's the end of this one. So yeah, thank you so much to everyone who submitted. As always, great job with the reels. These were incredible reels, and it's such a really cool, high quality bar. And yeah, thank you so much to you guys. I shouldn't say guys. To you two, John and Presley. Really, really appreciate it. and it's been so much fun. And yeah, definitely again. And if you want to submit for the next one, head to Airwiggles. Link is above in the chat, and keep an eye out in the events page and upcoming events also. These get posted there, and then there's a little button for submit your reel. So for sure, check that out. Please also check out all the awesome stuff that Presley is doing. There's a amazing website that Presley's just put together, which I will link in the chat, which is called Free Audio Resource, I think, if I'm not...
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah, it's a Google Sheet and a website. I just figured some people might find it easier to just have buttons on a website instead of having to parse through a Google Sheet. But there is a link to the sheet on the website as well. So either options work. Just a place that I wanted to put together to sort of highlight that, like, you don't need to spend $1,000 on plugins to start off. You can get a lot of stuff for free, and it's a very okay place to start. And there's a lot of that stuff that's really, really high quality, especially the Julian loudness meter is one I'm going to just kind of highlight. That loudness meter is amazing, and it's free, so totally get it.
Yeah.
Which is especially important to remember now that it's Black Friday deals everywhere, and you don't need to buy loads and loads of plugins to be a good sound designer. In fact, more so nowadays, I realize that actually I'm just using free plugins all the time, like OTT, and and all of the Kelliher stuff as well. Like,
yep.
The $10 a month Kelliher subscription, and it's not a free resource, so I can't
Yeah.
But it's honestly, it's so worth it that I just highly recommend that as well.
Yeah.
What was I gonna say? Yeah, that's
Also,
it. Also, I hope everyone enjoys God of War Ragnarok that's coming out this week.
Yeah. Amazing. Obviously, you've worked on that, so very excited. I don't have a PS5 though, so I have to wait till maybe.
You can play on PS4, can't you?
It is PS4. Yep.
Oh shit. Okay. The more you know.
I can't wait to sink my teeth into it. It's going to be amazing, but I'm trying to avoid spoilers, so yeah.
Just turn off the internet for the next day.
Oh yeah. Just forever. It'll be great.
But how are you gonna tune into real review? No, I'm joking. All right. In that case, have a great day, Presley. Have a good evening, John. Have a wonderful whatever you're at, in which time zone everyone else. Thanks for coming by.